83 days. That's how long it took the U.S. Army to go from the most humiliating defeat in American military history to building the doctrine that would win World War II. Just 83 days from disaster to dominance. This is Chapter 13, The Advantage of Defeat. Before Kasserine, the U.S. Army thought it was ready for war. The 1941 Louisiana maneuvers, the largest peacetime exercises in American history, seemed to prove it. 500,000 soldiers, cutting-edge tactics, competent leadership. General Leslie McNair declared the Army second to none. But here's what they didn't know. They were suffering from what military historians call victory disease. When you win without consequences, you stop learning. Your doctrine freezes. Your assumptions go unchallenged. You mistake peacetime success for wartime readiness. The Germans at Kasserine Pass taught them the difference in blood. This is the paradox. Victory breeds complacency. Defeat breeds doctrine. And the organizations that dominate over time understand this completely. In 1995, psychologists Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun published groundbreaking research on what they called post-traumatic growth. The concept that individuals don't just recover from trauma, they can emerge stronger, with enhanced capabilities they didn't have before. The framework identified 5 domains of growth: greater appreciation for life, deeper relationships, recognition of personal strength, discovery of new possibilities, and philosophical transformation. This doesn't just apply to individuals. Organizations experience post-traumatic growth. Nations experience it. Military institutions experience it. And the ones that engineer it deliberately don't just survive, they dominate. Nassim Taleb gave us the language for this in his book, Antifragile, Things That Gain from Disorder. He made a crucial distinction most people miss. Fragile systems break under stress. A crystal glass, a centralized bureaucracy, an organization that's never faced real adversity. Robust systems resist stress. They stay the same, resilient. They don't improve. Antifragile systems thrive on stress. They gain from disorder. They get stronger from volatility, from mistakes, from failures. The hydra that grows 2 heads when you cut one off. Organizations don't choose to be anti-fragile by avoiding failure. They become anti-fragile by building systems that extract permanent learning from temporary pain. They convert disaster into institutional memory. February 14, 1943, Kasserine Pass. The U.S. Army's first major ground engagement in Europe becomes a rout. Inexperienced troops panic. Officers freeze. Coordination collapses. German General Erwin Rommel's forces nearly destroy 2 American divisions. But watch what happens next. This is where the 83-day principle begins. Within 48 hours, General Dwight Eisenhower replaces commanders to install learning capacity. General George Patton takes command of the 2 corps. But more importantly, the entire institution goes into what we now call a wartime learning cycle. No bureaucratic delays, no face-saving, no blame diffusion, just brutal honesty about what failed and why. And here's what made this work. The U.S. Army built institutional memory, not just lessons learned and PowerPoints, not corporate platitudes about resilience, actual doctrine, written, tested, embedded knowledge that survives personnel takeover. They created the Combat Analysis Division. They mandated after-action reports at every level. They rewrote field manuals in real time based on combat feedback. They built feedback loops that ran at wartime speed. Compare this to organizations today. When was the last time your company extracted permanent learning from a failed product launch? Did you change process? Did you update training? Or did you just replace the people involved and move on? The difference between doctrine and anecdote is permanence. The U.S. Army's Kasserine doctrine lasted generations. Your company's lessons learned email gets buried in 48 hours. Kasserine isn't unique. It's a pattern. Watch how this plays out across completely different contexts. Israel, 1973 to 1982. The Yom Kippur War catches Israel completely off guard. On the first day, they lose 49 aircraft, a catastrophic number for a small nation. The entire defense establishment goes into crisis mode. 9 years later, the Bekaa Valley engagement. 82 Syrian aircraft destroyed with 0 Israeli losses. 82 to 0. That's transformation. That was an incremental improvement. What happened over those 9 years? They built institutional memory. Every combat engagement was documented. Every failure was analyzed. Pilot training was completely rebuilt. Doctrine rewritten based on actual battlefield data, not peacetime assumptions. Apple, 1997 to 2007. Near bankruptcy, 90 days from shutting down. Steve Jobs returns, and he doesn't just cut products. He builds institutional memory about what failed and why. The bloated product line, the loss of focus, the corporate politics that killed innovation. 10 years later, we have the iPhone launch, the most valuable company in history. Current valuation at $3 trillion. That's post-traumatic growth at corporate scale. Japan, 1945 to 1970. Total devastation, 2 atomic bombs, complete military defeat, economy destroyed. But they don't just rebuild, they transform. They study their defeats obsessively. They document what failed. They build new institutions based on brutal honesty about the old ones. 25 years later, second largest economy on Earth, industrial dominance in automotive, electronics, and manufacturing, from ashes to apex. Singapore, 1965 to 1990. They were expelled from Malaysia, no natural resources, surrounded by larger hostile neighbors. Lee Kuan Yew doesn't deny the advantage, he weaponizes it. The vulnerability becomes the catalyst for building the most efficient government in Southeast Asia. 25 years later, they had the 3rd highest GDP per capita globally. A city-state that transformed existential threat into permanent competitive advantage. So how do you build this? How do you create post-traumatic growth in your organization before external disaster forces it on you? You engineer wartime learning cycles. Step 1. You shatter assumptions before reality does. Run post-mortems. Conduct red team exercises. Stress test your systems deliberately. The U.S. Army learned this the hard way at Kasserine. You can learn it the smart way. Simulate defeat before it's real. Step 2. Build doctrine, not anecdotes. After every project, success or failure, extract permanent learning. Write it down. Embed it in your process. Update training. Make it survive personnel turnover. If your institutional knowledge walks out the door when someone quits, you don't have a system, you have memory. Step 3. Accelerate feedback loops. The 83-day principle only works if you can act in 83 days. That means removing bureaucratic friction, empowering rapid decision-making, creating accountability without blame. Learning speed beats resource scale. Step 4. Measure antifragility, not just resilience. Don't just track time to recovery. Track capability gained from disorder. Did your organization get stronger? Did you build new capacities? Did you discover possibilities you wouldn't have found through success? That's the metric that matters. Step 5. Institutionalize memory. Create the structures that make learning permanent. Documentation systems, training programs, promotion criteria that reward learning capacity. A culture that celebrates productive failure over unexamined success. This is the full synthesis. Learn fast, build feedback loops that run at wartime speed. Fail quick. Engineer small, controlled defeats before reality forces catastrophic ones. Dominate slow. Understand that sustainable advantage comes from institutional memory, not quarterly wins. Victory without challenge creates fragility. Defeat with learning creates anti-fragility. The question isn't whether your organization will face setbacks. The question is whether you'll be ready to weaponize them. 83 days. That's how long it took one organization to turn humiliation into dominance. How long will it take yours? This is Chapter 13, The Advantage of Defeat. Learn the framework, build the system, dominate slow.